When Misrule takes its place at the eight corners of the world, when the Brass Tower walks and time is reshaped, when the thrice-blessed fail and the Red Tower trembles, when the Dragonborn ruler loses his throne and the White Tower falls, when the Snow Tower lies sundered, kingless, bleeding, the World-Eater wakes, and the wheel turns upon the last Dragonborn. Who would have thought that the humble prisoner riding in the back of a cart to their execution would turn out to be Tamriel's savior? Ralof certainly wouldn't have. He watched the prisoner regain consciousness and uttered those glorious words, "Hey you, you're finally awake," and suddenly their fate was written. The Dragonborn would rise from the chopping block with their heads still attached, and every dragon in the land would soon be slain. But we all know how this story ends, and if you don't, you're 8 years late to the party. With the Dragonborn story concluded, I can't help but wonder whose story we'll be experiencing in 8 more years when the next game releases. If you've watched any of our videos, you'll know how much we're looking forward to The Elder Scrolls 6. I'm so excited that I'll probably pre-order my Elder Scrolls first subscription for the discounted price of $99 a year. I think most of us are confident that the next installment will either take place in High Rock, Hammerfell, or both, but if it happens to be Hammerfell, there's a perfect Dragonborn-esque role waiting for Tamriel's next great hero, and that's what we're discussing in today's video. I want to quickly shout out Asremo and Blue Lantern Soups on the Tesla subreddit for inspiring this cool idea, but with that said, let's get into it. The Dovahkiin is the perfect hero for Skyrim. While we would generally associate Dragonborns with Cyrodiil and the Empire, the Way of the Voice hails from the north, and usage of the Thum has led to a tense relationship between man and dragon. Back in the Merethic era, the dragons ruled over Skyrim. Eventually the Nords rebelled, and the Bloody Dragon War began. The tide of battle turned when Paarthurnax, Alduin's younger brother and trusted lieutenant, defected and taught the Nords to use the voice, the dragon language. Those who could channel the power of the Thum were called tongues, and for centuries they used it as an essential military weapon, but its power waned from overuse, and a tongue philosopher named Jurgen Windcaller discovered the way of the voice, and the Greybeards. He concluded that the storm voice should only ever be used in times of great need, and centuries later in the 201st year of the Fourth Era, Skyrim was in great need of someone who could use the voice. That's when the last Dragonborn emerges to save Tamriel from the returning Alduin. If the Elder Scrolls 6 is set in Hammerfell, who would be the equivalent to the last Dragonborn? Could anyone live up to such high expectations? Take heart, O illustrious majesty, for your people are Redguards, which means they come easily to the way of the sword, and once they have their hands once again on the hilts of blades, and learn to quote once more from the Book of Circles, they will be a match for any folk in all the round world, be they ever so numberless. When the Yakutans came from the distant western shores, they brought with them an ancient warrior art, sword singing. These singers were capable of impossible feats of swordsmanship, and many witnesses to their skills call them magicians as much as warriors. The greatest amongst the singers were called Saints of the Sword, or Ansei in the Yakutan tongue, and the Ansei were far more than just skilled fighters. They could channel a unique, powerful magic manifesting a sword from their very souls. These ethereal weapons are known as their Shihai, or spirit swords. This is where sword singing truly transforms from simply a martial art to a culture, a way of life, a state of mind. The successful summoning of a spirit sword was tied to the mental discipline of the saint. Meditation and the pursuit of enlightenment were just as important as physical conditioning and sword practice. An unyielding devotion to the Yakutan gods of war was necessary too. All in all, it was not a simple trick any Redguard could pick up. It is said that in incredibly rare cases, some young apprentices could form a Shihai with little to no training, and in equally rare circumstances, a Shihai could be called upon in times of great stress. As of the present day, the Way of the Sword is a distant memory, and the sword singers seem to no longer be active in Hammerfell. Even the natives of 4th Era Hammerfell call the Shihai superstitious nonsense. Redguard fighting prowess is still second to none, but the teachings of the sword singers is only remembered by the most dedicated traditionalists. This situation sounds prime for a new Elder Scrolls and a new existential crisis to plague Tamriel, a forgotten art that can be rediscovered in times of desperate need, a form of combat with seemingly infinite skills and techniques to learn, and it even mixes combat with magic with the supernatural, just like the Dragonborn's storm voice? What if instead of using the thumb, our new hero in Hammerfell learns to conjure a spirit sword, a feat that for centuries the common folk believed was more myth than reality? The Dragonborn had a wealth of shouts to learn, and a swordslinger would too. Just look at the Book of Circles by the legendary Ansei warrior Frendar Hunding. He writes, "In the season of life in which I passed through the rain's hand, more than 90 duels did I face to prove myself invincible. I learned the 38 grips, the 750 offensive and 1,800 defensive stances, and the 9,000 strikes that I would practice for all my future days. With Onsi's blessing, the swordslinger must do the same to achieve mastery of discipline. There would certainly be no shortage of abilities for our hero." Up to this point, most of us could have guessed that the return of sword singing would be the perfect role for the player character in Hammerfell, but what isn't so certain is how that would be implemented. In Skyrim, there's actually a really good system in place. They could have made it as simple as farming dragon souls to spend in Parthenax's linguistic shop, where you can trade your souls for new shouts, but no, they chose to use word walls. Not only do these walls add to the atmosphere in Skyrim, they also help you feel the history of the province, the distant times when the dragons ruled, and the legacy of the ancient Nords who learned their draconic language. It feels like the last Dragonborn is able to succeed thanks in part to the land and its rich history, with word walls dotted across the province, sometimes at the top of tall mountains, other times in secluded groves, or in the depths of some dungeon. The hero has an added motivation to explore the world and uncover its secrets. In Hammerfell, we've established that the sword singers are largely a thing of the past. The martial techniques still exist in some capacity, but the Shihai is long gone. So how will our hero establish a link to the past the way the last Dragonborn does? Will he find an old hermit with all the secrets, or will there be a well-designed system like the word walls which provide rewards for exploration in a lore-friendly context? I think the latter is absolutely possible. By expanding on a small piece of lore, acquiring new techniques can work in a similar way to learning new words in Skyrim. Do you know what a memory stone is? Well, if not, that's fine, because they've only been mentioned a few times across the Elder Scrolls, and are only featured once in Balmora. This is partially because they are expensive and harder to find than a sober Nord, according to one Dunmer named Naryu Virion. Memory stones are ancient relics used to preserve memories for future generations. How exactly that works isn't clear, but the idea of storing memories within objects is not a new one. A good example being Sotha Sil. The stars in his artificial night sky above the Clockwork City are actually repositories for his musings and memories to be stored eternally until such a time as someone takes them to the forming room to be replayed. There is one well-known instance of a mortal using a memory stone, and rather fittingly, it was done by an ancient Redguard hero and sword singer named Makella Leki. She was likely named after the Yakutan deity Leki, the goddess of aberrant swordsmanship. Makella was a master Ansei, and she documented her memories within a memory stone around the 973rd year of the First Era, just prior to the foreign invasion from the Bretons of Daggerfall. She first mentions that the stone cost her 25,000 gold, so that in itself proves how valuable and rare these relics are. She goes on to say, "I am Makella Leki, a warrior, a sword singer, a second-level Ansei. In my cradle I could form the Shihai, the spirit sword, the mystical blade, mine formed of pure thought serpents intertwined with vines of roses to form the blade. I am a simple warrior. I grew up as a maiden of the spirit blade. As early as I can remember, I wanted to be a singer, to feel the hunger of the blade in my hands, to feel it come alive and take my enemies. I am told our people were artisans and poets long ago in our desert homes. Here in the new home, now known as Hammerfell, many of us have returned to those ancient ways, but to me there is but one way, the way of the sword." She gives a fascinating first-hand account of her first time learning to become a sword singer, and even referencing a specific sequence in the battle against the Bretons. "It was alive with fire. It formed in my hand, ablaze with power. Oh, I slew mightily right and left, like a scythe through wheat. All the way to the Lord of Daggerfall I fought. With one blow I cut his magical armor asunder. One more took his head." Imagine traveling Hammerfell in the Elder Scrolls 6 and stumbling upon this ancient memory stone. Just like when the word walls call to the Dragonborn, it could reveal itself. Perhaps it is a stone with old Yakuden words carved into the smoothed surface. Those magical words could glow and tell their story to the Swordsinger, and if we use Makela Lecky's story as an example, maybe this memory stone would grant the hero the unique ability to swing his or her spirit sword like a scythe through wheat, dealing bonus damage to magical armor with a chance to decapitate. If this idea is implemented by Bethesda, it has everything you could want from a gameplay mechanic. It encourages the player to explore in search of these stones. It provides unique short stories from the original owner of the stone, which can flesh out the province, its rich history and culture, and it will keep providing the Swordsinger with lore-friendly ways to gradually improve their arsenal. If implemented correctly, which it should be considering Bethesda nailed it in Elder Scrolls V, then it would make Frendar Hunding and his ancient brothers and sisters of the Spirit Sword proud. How would you like to learn the 38 grips, the 2,550 stances, the 9,000 strikes? I think there's no alternative to learning them from the legendary Swordsingers themselves. They may be long dead and mostly forgotten, but with the power of the mystical memory stones, we can hear many stories from Hammerfell's greatest heroes, their ancient creed serving a renewed purpose, arming the reborn Ansei warrior with all the tools he or she needs to save the world from whatever existential plight the Elder Scrolls 6 may bring. And there you have it, guys, what I think could replace the Dragonborn, Dragon Shouts, and Word Walls in the Elder Scrolls 6. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, social media links can be found in the description below. My name is Michael, and I look forward to nerding out with you again very soon.